Okay, I believe it's rolling. So the University of Florida is a non-discriminatory, equal opportunity employer and service provider for the community. Hello and welcome to Common Landscaping Issues, Florida-Friendly Landscaping Strategies for Community Associations. My name is Michael Masucci. I'm a landscape horticultural assistant here at the University of Florida IFAS Extension, Hillsborough County. Today, I'm going to discuss some strategies for homeowners and HOA board members to work together to create healthy and environmentally friendly landscapes. So the University of Florida IFAS, Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, has a program called Florida Friendly Landscaping. It was established in 1993 with a partnership with the university, the state, and the Department of Environmental Protection. The agenda of FFL is an integrated approach to maintaining an attractive, colorful, and diverse landscape. The goals are to conserve water and protect the water quality. And our target are homeowners, businesses, builders, and community developers. So you may or may not know, Florida Friendly has 3 subprograms. Each of these programs teach the same 9 principles, but they provide targeted educational programming to each audience. FFL for homeowners targets homeowners, gardeners, and youth. Florida Friendly Communities targets municipalities, builders, developers, and property managers. And the Green Industries Best Management Practices Program, or GIBMP for short, targets landscape maintenance professionals. The mission is to educate Floridians about environmentally friendly landscaping practices and to encourage them to conserve and protect our water resources by applying Florida-friendly landscaping principles in their landscapes. And we do this through teaching the 9 principles listed here. To address some issues around the FFL legislation, we held a series of focus groups across the state to try to find the differences and commonalities between HOA board members and homeowners. We interviewed each group separately so that they would feel free to speak openly about their concerns. We were looking for their knowledge and perception of Florida-friendly landscaping, as well as their landscape preferences. I would like to now discuss some of their findings in the next several slides. So I'm going to start out by highlighting a few of the common issues that we saw. The first being that the understanding the community deed restrictions. So many people move into a community and may not read their deed restrictions, and they may not know that they have them. Typically, they should have gotten them in the closing paperwork, but often people don't bother reading them with all the other information that they are receiving at that time. It's very overwhelming. Or they might think that only the front yard has to be accordingly to the deed restriction, but that's not always the case. Once again, it's important to read and understand the deed restrictions. Secondly, we found that homeowners were making changes without board approval. Or so that in all is not a good idea. So you still must follow your deed restrictions, or you may be fined and or have to remove that newly installed landscape, which to me is a double whammy. So this permission must be requested prior to removing and or replanting landscape. And it usually involves submitting a landscape plan and meeting with the landscape review or architectural review committee prior to being allowed to make change. Third was the time frame for approval. So check your HOA submission rules. They usually have like 30 days to review and approve or deny your application. People who have succeeded in implementing FFL without HOA approval have done so on this technicality. Next, we saw plant selection was a big issue. So HOAs can and often have a specific list of plants that they allow in their community. This might be so that you will match a theme or sort of what the whole aesthetics of the community is going for together. So you want to make sure you're checking. So there are nursery plants that are labeled as Florida friendly, but they may or may not be. For Florida friendly, it always comes down to right plant, right place. So we recommend always checking. There's a great reference, the UFIFAS assessment, to make sure you do not install any invasive plants. This is an interactive website, and I will follow up with links in the description to all of this stuff. But the UFIFAS assessment is an interactive map. So you can put your zip code and you can say, hey, what are the invasive plants that are prohibited, that are invasive or high invasive risk? And they'll tell you which plants. So you do not install those. Okay. So that's a great way to start getting rid of all those invasives. Next, we noticed that the verge planting and a right of way or the utility area. So this is an area between the road and the sidewalk. It's also commonly it's a easement, meaning that it's owned either by the city or an HOA or somebody else has rights to that area. But the homeowner is usually required to maintain it. And your HOA rules still apply in this area. The picture on the right that shows a couple of trees in that very narrow strip. You have some mulching. We have some liriopes and such. This is that area we're speaking about. In this area, maintaining turf is often very difficult. Even when there's irrigation, it is prone to damage. It's prone to overspraying. It's very, again, hard to dedicate the water exactly to where you need it. So you can go to the city's website if there's any question about who owns what. The zoning laws should be posted online for that area that you're in. We like to recommend in areas like this where turf grasses don't really take well, maybe a turf grass alternative, maybe a ground cover or something very small that might not block sight lines. And on the left there, those are large trees planted in that right of way, which tear up the road and the sidewalk. I live in an older development in Valrico where, you know, I enjoy the old oaks. I love the shade. I love the look of it all, but they have kind of damaged the sidewalks, and I have stumped my toes a couple of times walking my dog when I'm not paying attention. But I'd rather have the trees. These trees, they're usually planted as a permitting requirement. You know, they can upheave the sidewalks, roads, and driveways if there's not enough for the room for the tree roots. This is usually unsafe, but it's very expensive to correct. And the longer you wait, the more costly it becomes. And you also have to remember if you're going to remove any tree, just to check if you have to get a permit to remove that tree. If it's a protected tree, you might have to replace it. So be sure to consult with your UFIFAS extension, check with your HOA guidelines, and the city might actually have a requirement for replanting as well. So just check on that before making any drastic changes. Some more common landscape issues. A big one was the species of turf required. So this is a big one. There are 5 varieties of turf grass that are considered Florida friendly. We have St. Augustine, Bahia, Bermuda, Zoysia, and Centipede. Again, those are the 5 varieties that are considered Florida friendly. However, this does not mean that you can just plant whatever variety you feel fit. You want to check with your HOA rules to see if they specify a certain turf grass. If none is specified, then consult with the UFIFAS extension, and we can help you pick of what's available to you, the best variety that is suited to your area. So what about areas though that cannot support turf grass? So this is typically seen in older communities where the landscapes have matured. You might have large trees that have grown and now provide too much shade for grass to survive. We have calls for people who actually say their HOA wants them to cut down the matured tree so that the grass can grow. So, so this is short-sighted. in my opinion, and UFIFS backs it up, the trees make urban life more pleasant and provide benefits such as they lower the air conditioning costs, they increase resale values. They also, the tree canopy is also a great way to reduce stormwater runoff. So HOAs should be proactive and decide how they want to deal with shade by identifying a procedure for turf replacement. So if you try to replace that same area multiple times and you're consistently finding issues, well, maybe after, let's say, 3 times you've tried to replace that, then the guidelines might allow a ground cover or a plant alternative to be allowed in that area. Have maintenance and aesthetic goals that are consistent with the neighborhood look when choosing the plant palette for the turf replacement. That's really the big issue is we want to match the aesthetics of the whole neighborhood. So you might just have to kind of work with the architectural review board a little more on selecting the correct plants. And again, UFIFAS can help you with that. Um, Another one we saw were the types of mulch required. So some communities require the use of rocks, okay, or cypress mulch. So Florida-friendly landscaping does not consider these to be Florida-friendly. We would recommend that you would contact an extension agent and use a more Florida-friendly mulch that is more environmentally friendly and maybe not rocks. We use rocks in very narrow areas, drip lines, but not as a whole complete mulch. We'll get into that a little bit further too. So landscape maintenance is also another big one. Big to me too, because this is my background is in landscape maintenance and construction. So the issue is not so much about the look of the yard when it's maintained. It's more about the look of the yard when it's not maintained. And HOAs can use photo examples of the level of maintenance that is expected. Although maintenance expectations are hard to quantify, the photo will give homeowners of a general idea what their yard should and should not look like. All right. So a lot of the times you might want to show them that level of where it's kind of draws the line. We don't want it to get looking anywhere near this. So keep it under that can work as well. And the Architectural Review Board or the ARB or review committee should include a person who's knowledgeable about Florida-friendly landscaping and the plant materials. They can help other board members understand recommended FFL design and maintenance techniques. It'll be a good idea to have them take an online class or a GIBMP, that Green Industries Best Management Practices, which focuses all on maintenance. It might be a benefit to have them take that class. At least have one person that has some knowledge of it. So one way to reduce maintenance and still maintain a manicured look is to encourage the use of shrubs that will not outgrow their space. So on the left here, where we see some coloring, we have some red shrubs. Those are cordyline. We have some other shrubs too. One even kind of cascading over the walkway, which could be a tripping hazard at nighttime or anytime, honestly. So these are all plants that kind of want to get really big and require a lot more maintenance to keep them that manicured look, as well as they're using a lot of nutrients because they are fast growers. So again, reduce the maintenance by selecting shrubs or varieties of plants that still match that theme and structure, but don't grow as much. And we have a lot of resources and help for that. I'll get into that a little bit further. So these are some common issues that we see. If you know of any, please reach out. I would love to chat about it. Maybe even drop a comment in this video, and we can extend that conversation. So some of the takeaways and important concepts from what we learned is that turf is a catalyst for differences. On this image, you can see how this front yard does not have a lot of turf, but it clearly fits the neighborhood aesthetic. By using this ribbon of turf with a deep, well-maintained landscape bed, it matches the turf grass and it doesn't take away from the whole theme of the neighborhood. Because again, we're living in a community. We want to be friendly to our neighbors, and we want everything to kind of match, be in a theme, and be kind of the same. Another big catalyst for differences is weeds. Weeds represent a lack of care and a lack of responsibility for the neighborhood. They also impact neighbors when allowed to spread. If you let those weeds go to seed consistently, your neighbors are getting them. And if you're not controlling it, then your neighbors are noticing. So we can show that responsibleness. Don't let the weeds get too crazy. Control those. Design landscape to minimize the weeds. Mulch really keeps them out. Um, Landscapes are usually not a topic of conversation between neighbors unless somebody has an unconventional or poorly maintained landscape. So a concern is that so if you convert to a Florida friendly from a traditional sense of a landscape, you're more 1980s and forward till now. Like, so those are considered traditional landscapes, right up tight up against the windows, not so much beddings, just a lot of turf grass, maybe a shade tree. But the biggest misconception is that if you convert to a Florida friendly, it's going to be more maintenance and that's not the same. So the look of the yards to determine what appears to be the norm, right? We can reduce that need for excess maintenance, right? With right plant, right place, picking varieties that don't require the excess pruning. Um, that's what I love about Florida friendly landscaping is that there is a safe way to approach it all. And we've done the homework for you. Here's a big thing right here. So, um, this is a publication. This is working with your homeowners association, 10 strategies, and it really helps starting with that planning part, helps you design an application to submit so that you have a higher success rate. So that everybody's kind of working together. This publication is great. At that, again, all of these publications, there are links down in the comments and for you to do that. This one is 10 strategies HOAs. All right. So talking about success stories, I'm going to provide a few examples of what other communities have done and how they've benefited by working with their local UF extension offices. Starting with Sumter County. So the Villages, which is a government annex, and Sumter County Public Library, they got together and they replaced annuals with drought-tolerant perennials. So before, the beds were installed 4 times a year. They were irrigated on high volume irrigation, and they were deadheaded consistently. After they switched it, they required less maintenance for those plants, and they required less irrigation, saving this community $2,935 a year. In Pinellas County, we have the Royal Stewart Arms. They increased the size of their landscape beds, as you can see around their common area, their sign. The top right picture is the after picture of the extension. They also they replaced their high volume irrigation and installed drip irrigation, and they saw an annual savings of $15,000. Very cool. Very cool right there. Broward County, Village is a 47-acre, 177 home community association. So the left is that before area. And after consulting, they started following IFAS recommendations, and they were able to cut water by a third and fertilizer and pesticide use in half without sacrificing the look of their landscape. The before and the after pictures reflect shrubs that are allowed to grow. They let them grow into a more natural shape, which means less pruning, less disease, and less frequent plant replacements. So when we're over pruning, what we're really doing is we're creating open wounds for pathogens, for diseases to get into the plant. So and also you're consistently cutting them in a uniformic appearance, but it's very unnatural to the plant. Again, stressing the plant out. So you allow it to grow to its natural state, reducing that pruning, reducing the amount of disease that can hit it. And they saw a drastic savings, $33,000 annually in this community. And a really big one here. This is a 100-acre community association in Flagler County. It's Ocean Hammock. You can see it starts at that red icon. It goes down probably towards the bottom there. It's the coastal area. So they replaced turf in their medians with ground covers, and they installed micro irrigation for that. They used hardier annuals and reduced the number of rotations from four down to two times a year. So they were replacing those annuals only twice. And then they no longer hurricane cut their palms twice a year. Just the hurricane cutting was $25,000 they saved. And altogether, they saved $50,000 annual on their budget. So this is just some examples that communities that have embraced the Florida friendly landscaping in their communities have made it through, and they are showing those success stories. And we know that doing it all at once is overbearing. It could be a lot. So we say start with some easy steps forwards. Start with small steps, right? You don't need to do everything all at once. A first step that you can do is little narrow areas, as you see in this photo on the left here, these little turf areas. Um, Ideally, I mean, they could be functional, they could be doing something, but honestly, the the maintenance crew, they have to come by, they have heavy equipment, they have to be very delicate around those around that little strip. It's causing a lot of just excess, I would say, for the crew. I would reduce that. I would reduce those areas, put ground covers in there that honestly don't need to be pruned. They stay really short to the ground. They get really tight knit, and there are a lot of varieties of ground covers that are Florida friendly, and that can be suitable for different types of site conditions. So I'm going to talk about some resources coming up soon about how you can determine that. And we've made it easy to figure out plants to put in those areas for you. So again, these areas are time consuming and very difficult to maintain. So we really just want to make it easy for the landscape crews so they can get in, get out, and just focus on doing a good job, right? So if we have damaged irrigation zones, a very small step forward where we see a lot of savings quickly is with switching out to micro irrigation. Retrofitting is a big thing now in the industry, and a lot of these high volume pop-ups can be converted to micro irrigation a lot easier now. It might be a small initial cost up front, but in the long run, over 2 years, you will see those savings, and you will start earning back from making those decisions. This is a big, big, big one. I showed you one community, they saved $25,000 alone by just stopping this process twice a year, which we don't need to do at all. We recommend not hurricane cutting. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, it's when you over prune a palm tree to where it looks anything like what you see in these images. The gentleman on the right, although he's performing a service, he's working hard. He has overpruned the tree, and then also he's wearing spikes on his shoes or his boots that are putting holes and can cause a lot of stress to that palm, can cause pathogens to get in there. So it's just a bad practice. Um, and we have a lot of good publications about how to properly prune palms. If you're interested in that, I have plenty of time to talk about that outside of this presentation. Contact me. I would love to talk about this. Okay, so another thing that you can do is retain water on site by using porous surfaces or creating swales to slow and filter runoff or stormwater runoff, right? It hits your roof, it goes down. We would like to see it maybe going instead of straight down the driveway, converting your driveway to a more pervious surface, sort of like you see with the pavers in the driveway and on the little walkway to the front door, or on the bottom under there. That's what we like to call a rain garden or a bog. Now, these are a little bit more creative. There is some maintenance, but you do get plant life, you get wildlife that does visit that, and this is just a very unique type of garden that you can add to your landscape. So a big thing that you can do around common areas, this is a really simple one. So these annual flower beds that people like to change out usually 4 times a year is the going around, is what people say. You can limit that to your high impact areas, such as your entranceways, your signs, your clubhouses, right? And wherever it's possible, replace those annuals with hardier perennials, maybe through a longer drive through the neighborhood, right? But in those common areas, those clubhouses, that's where you can kind of use the annuals then. Some things that we're seeing now is if you're having a reoccurrent pest problem, um, consider replacing the plant material with a more suitable plant or a pest resistant variety. What you're seeing in this image is called sooty mold, and it happens all over. It's actually a fungus that grows on plants um, and other objects, such as like garden furniture, stones, and cars. It appears to be a black coating on the leaves. It can be on the fruit and twigs, even branches. But it's not pathogenic to the plant, but it can be indirectly damaging them by blocking sunlight. This is a reaction from an insect that might be feeding on it. They have a waste that they leave on the leaf, and then the sooty mold, the fungus, grows on that waste. So once it gets it blocks the plant from photosynthesizing, and it can stunt the growth. So every year, what's really cool is that there's new varieties of plants that are being released out into the market. And a lot of these nurseries try them out, they get them and they push them. And so we learn about these new varieties that might be resistant to the pest that likes to feed on it. So then you won't get that sooty mold infestation. Using that theory and applying it to like the turf grass, right? If you're having reoccurrent pest issues or every year around the same time, you're seeing the same problem, you might think about, hey, let's not put turf in there. Let's extend the bedding, as you see on the side of the house here, how they brought it away from the driveway and got rid of that area where St. Augustine was consistently seeing a problem. Or another situation, here's a similar situation here where, again, cut into that area that you're seeing consistent problems, and then we have a good solution there. Replacing the plant material more suitable, resistant variety again, right? Here's a unique situation. So, lethal virus necrosis. It's caused by sugarcane mosaic virus. They're both grass types, so they can affect each other. Um, the symptoms now, you see how it has sort of just gaps in there and it's declining. So a lot of people, you might scratch your head and go, hey, this kind of looks like chinch bugs, right? Which could affect St. Augustine around this time. Or, you want to think about what's the type of St. Augustine grass that I have. In this situation, um, which happened last week. We had a client come in. He was convinced that he had St. Augustine, and he was convinced that it was chinch bugs, even though he's spraying for chinch bugs and he didn't see any chinch bugs. He was like, they keep getting me every year at this time. And so we looked a little bit more into it. And if you look on the right, that mosaic in the grass, that's a telltale sign for what we just said, that lethal virus necrosis, or it's caused by the sugarcane mosaic virus. And it causes that little off pattern kind of mosaic look to it. And it strictly affects Floritam St. Augustine. And I asked him, hey, do you have Floritam? And he goes, well, yeah. And I keep replacing it with Floritam. And I go, oh, we might want to kind of avoid using Floritam in your area. It's prone to this kind of virus. And so a unique thing that you can do is we can look at new cultivars of St. Augustine. We have Citra Blue, which is a striking blue-green color. It has good shade tolerance. It is improved disease resistance and improved drought resistance. Also, it's reduced the mowing frequency, so you don't have to mow it as frequent as you would the regular Floritam or palm. But and also we have some varieties for zoysia grass, which is a similar variety. Citruzoi would be a great addition. These might cost a little bit more money up front right now because they're new cultivars, but in the long run, they've been tested and they're backed by science in the University of Florida of being a better variety than these varieties that we might have in the industry for a long time now that are we are seeing these common issues. So definitely check them out. There's some cool varieties out there to replace, and these are just kind of just simple steps. Remember, we're just thinking of just if you're having a consistent issue at an area, maybe think of an alternative than putting the same thing back in there, right? This is a an example of Indian hawthorn is the plant, and what you're seeing is a leaf spot called entomosporium. I think it's the India hawthorn is the only one this one really affects in our area. And so there are newer varieties of Indian hawthorn that are disease resistant to entomosporium. It doesn't really kill the plant out, but it does give it these like really nasty spots on them. It just doesn't look good, and it does kind of stunt the growth. You won't see as much flowering when the plant is stressed like this. Um, some other things that we can look at too instead of replacing would be watering. Are we irrigating too much, right? Mulching could reduce a lot of the stress and allow water to stay in the root zone so that it can keep that plant a little bit happier. And then sanitation, right? Are we raking those the leaves that are falling? Are we raking them up and taking them out, or are we just taking the pathogen and kind of re-inoculating it back into the plant? So there's other treatment practices that you can kind of look at. Today, so here's a big one in palms. And so researchers um, reported more than a dozen host species can get this, what we call lethal bronzing disease. Um, it is a deadly plant disease, but you can identify and prevent the spread of lethal bronzing in your area. Lethal bronzing is spread solely by a tiny winged insect, usually called the American palm, and it's six-sheed. It's got a unique spelling, but it's also commonly known as a tree hopper. The foreign bacteria, phytoplasma, is spread from the insect's mouth into the vascular system tissue of the tree. So that right there is how it's spread. So neighboring palms, if you do see this, you kind of want to have your neighboring palms tested. So if a neighboring palm tests negative, you can do preventative antibiotic kind of a treatment where you actually inject the palms. We have four palms, I believe, at Extension, Hillsborough County, that get inoculated multiple times a year. If you would like to come see how the process looks, you can come by and check that out. And if you're lucky to be here on a day that our arborist is inoculating those, then you can ask him a bunch of cool questions, and he loves to talk about it. So again, this is about lethal bronzing disease in palms. Again, if you see it, there are ways. You don't have to go crazy and cut them out. There are ways to kind of fight it. And so um, one thing that we like to see is people like, and they might have a themed in there of maybe a formal looking garden. And what's really a strong specimen is these pyramid looking kind of trees that are kind of cut in pyramids, which can lead to a lot of maintenance. So a lot of people, they do a lot of maintenance to keep them looking this pyramid shape. But what we can do is we can find maybe formal plantings that just keep the shape, right? That have a more natural shape to them, like our Italian cypress or maybe a southern magnolia, the American holly, or a really, really good one for a natural shape is going to be the Brody red cedar. Again, these kind of keep a shape and structure of that formal look without overly needing to maintain the tree. Another really big kind of plant issue that we see are tea roses. We love the tea roses. They're fragrant. They're beautiful. They just kind of pop in the garden, and they demand respect because they have those thorns on them. So black spots are what you're seeing in here, or leaf spots, right? These can be caused by chili thrips, nematodes, but also a lot of it's caused by what we call when you irrigate it and you wet the leaves, or foliar application of irrigation. When the leaves are getting wet, that's really a gateway for pathogens. The best practice would be to water them at the root, but we understand that sometimes it's not, the irrigation system is not installed there. Um, but they just are highly, you would say, susceptible to problems. A good alternative to a tea rose, sorry, would be these newer varieties. Now, we have a drift and a knockout. The drift is going to be just like a ground cover, very low. It has a sprawling kind of effect to it, and always blooming these very cute little flowers. The fragrance is very reduced on them, just like in the knockout. The knockout is a more upright kind of a shrub, but still compact in size. And what I love about it is it has a reduced thorn to it as well. So there's not that many thorns on a knockout. They have also double knockout, which are even bigger blooms. And what's really cool about the knockout and the drifts is that they are always blooming and they have reduced that disease to them. They are very resistant to diseases. Um, and they don't require fungicide applications, just like a tree rose would, or a tea rose would. Um, in that same kind of idea, dwarf varieties of plants, sort of like the bottle brush. There is a dwarf one, the red flower you see on top. And then on the bottom there, that's a Japanese plum yew, a very reduced kind of prehistoric looking plant. I love this in a more native scene near some coonties or maybe on a dune with some mulching on it. They love to stay low and sprawl out. Some other alternatives, some dwarf varieties are the Chinese holly, Carissa, and also Walter's viburnum, Mrs. Schiller's delight. These love to stay compact without having to maintain them uh, too much. They grow to size fairly moderately, not too fast or anything, but they can repair damage quite quickly too. And they bloom. The viburnums have a white bloom, beautiful. Okay. So we're going to get into the Florida-friendly landscaping legislation now. I have a couple of slides on this, and then I'm going to quickly go through a little friendly quiz. I know that you can't participate now. I will try to leave a little bit of a gap so that you can form an answer in your head, and then I'll answer the questions. So diving into it, the Florida-friendly landscaping principles were found to be compelling enough that they've been written into the Florida state legislation for both the FFL and the GIBMP program. I'm going to give a brief description on the next slides. So, Florida Statute 373.185 is legislation that impacts local governments, HOAs, and residents. It defines Florida-friendly landscapes as quality landscapes that conserve water, protect the environment, are applicable to local conditions, and are drought tolerant. It also encourages water management districts to implement incentive programs for local governments to adopt FFL ordinances. In addition, the legislation states that local government ordinances, deed restrictions, or covenants may not, again, may not prohibit Florida-friendly landscaping practices. However, the statute does not invalidate HOA architectural control and landscape committee decisions. So homeowners can implement FFL as long as they comply with code restrictions and gain approval from the appropriate committee. Homeowner associations may require certain elements of Florida-friendly landscaping to be located in the back or side of the yard. An example like a rain barrel or your vegetable garden. Also written into the legislation is that all commercial fertilizer applicators in the state of Florida must go through the Florida Friendly Landscaping Green Industries Best Management Training. That's that GIBMP that I was mentioning before. So this is, they must obtain a license from the Florida Department of Ag and Consumer Science Services, sorry, before applying fertilizer in a commercial setting. And this became mandatory in 2014. I have a link with this book. It's a PDF available online for free. And if you'd actually like some copies, please reach out to me. I can get you copies of these. My contact information should be in the comments. Thank you. Okay, so a great resource for FFL legislative questions. So we've since 2009, since it was put in, we've had a lot of questions, and so we've developed this publication ENH 1179, which I have included in the links. Um, to answer those questions. So they have some common questions in them, sort of like, is turf grass Florida friendly, right? What types of turf grass are Florida friendly? And these answer them. I'm going to go real quick now through a little quiz that are going to answer some of these questions for you. If you are playing along at home, I'm going to give a couple seconds for you to form an answer, and then I'll answer it. Let's have some fun. Okay, first question. Can HOA require St. Augustine or lawn turf grass? Yes or no? Yes, believe it or not, St. Augustine can be required just like any other turf grass. But remember, right plant, right place. If the grass needs to be repeatedly replaced, consider another type of turf or ground cover. All right. Second question. So since five types of turf grass are listed as Florida friendly landscaped, friendly, can homeowners plant whichever one they choose? Yes or no? So we have five varieties. Can they just choose whatever one? No. The homeowner first may need to get approval from the HOA review board for landscape approval and should select only turf grasses or turf grass that is appropriate for the site. Can HOAs require a homeowner to keep turf grass green year round? Yes or no? Now, this one's a little interesting. Can HOAs require a homeowner to keep turf grass green year round? And the answer is no. So it is natural for turf grass to go dormant in the cold weather. No amount of water or fertilizer will change this cycle. And the fact is, St. Augustine grass is a warm season grass that goes dormant when soil temps drop below 55. Now, again, that's the soil temperature, not quite the air temperature. The soil temperatures kind of take a little bit longer to drop in temperature, but once they do, that's when the grass goes dormant. Once it reaches above a certain temperature, I believe it's 68 degrees, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But once it reaches above the soil temperatures, that's when it comes out of dormancy. So we can't do anything to keep it green once it does do that. So will Florida Friendly Landscaping provide legal advice if there is a dispute between a homeowner and an HOA? Yes or no? And the answer is no. So this is a big one. So the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program recommends homeowners and HOAs to work cooperatively to find mutually accepted solutions. The IFAS and the Department of Environmental Protection can offer technical assistance and education, but we cannot advise any party of legal rights and cannot resolve disputes between HOAs and homeowners. All right. So are entirely rock landscapes Florida friendly? I believe I said this earlier in the video, so this should be, everybody should get it right. And you should all be saying no, right? If an HOA review board allows any rocks, the Florida friendly program recommends that they be used in a reasonable way in the landscape, such as accents around heat tolerant plants and trees. Use them in rain gardens or to loosen the impact of rainfall from roof overhangs. We just don't want it to be extended to the entire landscape. Is rubber mulch Florida friendly? Yes or no? We see these at the big box stores. They got black, red. They have all the colors. They're rubber mulch. They say, hey, it lasts a super long time, but is it Florida friendly? And the answer is no. Unfortunately, now recycled rubber is a good purpose. I support recycling, but as mulch, it's not recommended for plant beds. The vegetation and organic mulch provide for a richer and more diverse landscape. And also, mulch made from tree bark and other plant materials contribute nutrients and organic material to the soil as it decomposes, unlike rubber, which is not contributing much. One that I get asked a lot is artificial turf considered Florida friendly. And as you see in this image, they're using it for all of their turf grass. And in this situation, no. Artificial turf has been found to increase the surface temperature, emit noxious gases, and does not filter carbon dioxide or stormwater runoff the way that plants and turf grass does. And also, it still needs to be watered to clean it and cool it. So that's it for the little quiz. I now have a video to kind of emphasize the artificial turf. And it's just going to show you guys and compare the surface temperatures of natural and synthetic turf grass systems. So I think the video will play as soon as I go. Here we go. So these temperatures were measured using a handheld infrared thermometer. And he has natural turf grass here, and the outside temperature is 94 degrees. So in synthetic turf, we're showing 159 degrees on the radar. On natural turf, 103, I think was the highest I saw. Now back to that, 159, 160, 155, very hot. And the following pictures are often offered as a comparison. So this asphalt parking lot was 127 degrees. And this concrete sidewalk was 115 degrees. And again, the ambient air temperature at all of them, it was 94 degrees that day. So that really shows the differences that synthetic turf grass and natural turf grass do. Okay. So moving along, we're going to talk about some of the Florida-friendly landscaping resources for both homeowners, HOAs, and everybody really interested in learning more about this. The FFL program has an extensive amount of educational materials available to encourage more sustainable landscape practices. These publications on this page are the foundation of the program. First, we have so actually what you're seeing are the last revised ones. So we've just recently revised them. This is the new look on all of them right now. The one in the middle with the yellow, that is the FFL Guide to Plant Selection and Landscape Design. This lists FFL plants and their growing requirements, as well as possible design solutions to common landscape issues. Really helps you pick the right plant for the right place, breaks it all down very easily into different sections. So you have large trees, small trees, you have shrubs, perennials, annuals, ground covers, grasses, palms, right? We break them down into sections to make it easier for you to select plants. The one on the left, the Handbook for Home Landscapes, that describes in details the 9 principles of FFL and how to maintain a landscape for the home audience. And the blue, the one on the right, that Protection of Water Resources by the Green Industries, that is the GIBMP program and really teaches the 9 principles for the professional landscape community. These publications are available free of charge. Online. If you go to that website, publications, you can download them for free, the PDF. You can also come into Extension. A lot of the times we have copies of these available for you. And also you can order more on our websites. So we have workshops specifically for HOA communities. This is one right here that we're presenting. And then also we have tailored workshops and other materials for HOA communities, as well as this great website that you're seeing, Make Your Community Florida Friendly. It talks about design and maintenance. It goes through hiring processes. It has that publication that I talked about earlier, the 10 strategies for working with HOAs. We have model codes, model architectural review board guidelines. And like this one right here, we have these modeled language documents that help community code, covenants, and restrictions create that. So you can put the Florida friendly landscaping the vocabulary, right, into your guidelines. This helps you design and make it very easily for you. Some other ones we might have are this great document, which is ENH 1080. This is a guideline for community associations, when they're considering a landscaper, how to write an effective landscape contract, and it takes you from A to Z on what you should be asking them, what you should be looking for the credentials. The maintenance requirements, again, they'll tell you what based on like what the variety of grass, if you have St. Augustine, that it needs to be mowed at a 4-inch height, right? You don't want it to get above 6 inches. That information has been figured out for you and put conveniently into these documents. You reach out to somebody like me. That's what I love to do. My position works for the HOAs, for the residents, and to help show you what the University of Florida brings. We have this website here, just even more talks about hiring a Florida-friendly landscaper. The questions, it has a checklist to help you hire that professional. It has the recommended certifications and stuff to ask. It has the GIBNP program information. It has Florida Friendly Landscaping Certified Professional, which is another great course that we offer here, and just ties it all together on what you should be looking for to help you out. For more of those publications, we've also integrated them online. We have developed several mobile web applications. So we have that Florida-friendly landscaping plant guide available online. It lists more than 400 Florida-friendly plants. It's available on your phone, tablet, and home computer. Really cool is you could put in your zip code and then filter based on, I want, I'm in a 9B. I have full sun. I want a yellow flower. And I want it to be a native, and it'll single out, the variety of plants exactly for what you're looking for. We've also created some apps to help you with fertilizer ordinances because they're consistently updated. Also, toxic plants can help you create a better butterfly garden as well as bee garden. So these are available for free. They're available online, and I will support. I mean, in the comments, there should be a link to all of these right here. So something else that we do, and I actually evaluate this, is the FFL Landscape Recognition Program. And we have several recognition programs to encourage everybody to implement a Florida-friendly landscape and maintenance it under the 9 principles. So we recognize home landscapes, we recognize commercials landscapes, new constructions, as well as your whole community neighborhood can be recognized. This is an amazing incentive program that comes with a lot of encouragement too from the state office and from UF. We have signs and stuff that can go into the yards. We have neighborhoods, big flags that can get put out. There are 3 statuses now that home landscapes can get. There's silver, gold, and the new one, FFL Natural. So if you want further information about that, please reach out to me. I would love to follow up and tell you all about the FFL recognition program. And to finish this up, I have a video. It's a short video. It's about 5 minutes, but it's a landscape architect who has worked with the community, and they made a video, and I love to share this video. So please enjoy this amazing success story of Florida-friendly landscaping.
Wellington contacted me initially because they were, year after year, their budget was increasing by tens of thousands of dollars because they had to keep replacing grass in the community. The irrigation was wrong. The soil was bad. We took trouble areas, and we designed Florida friendly. We put in berms and boulders and low volume irrigation. And as it matured, people started realizing that, it's not going to look like a desert wasteland. That's when people came forward and said, that's what I want. I didn't know that's what Florida friendly was. We put in the right plant, the right place, and with a good design, you could see that it really was aesthetically pleasing. This was a demonstration, one of the very first Florida friendlies that we put into Wellington because people assumed that they were going to get that Arizona desert wasteland. And And if you look at it, it doesn't look anything like a wasteland. You've got lush green, different tones of green. As long as you can educate people and let them know that you have options, you've got a huge palette to work with that's creating those textures, the tones, the colors, the heights. Initially, this embankment was actually about 2 to 3 feet wider than what it is now. The fountain was creating just a small ripple, but it was enough that over a period of a two-year time frame, they lost a foot or two of the embankment. It just kept eroding away. So what we did was we brought in a bunch of riprap to break the ripples and put down the netting and planted directly into the netting. And all of it's Florida friendly. Initially we had the irrigation for the establishment period, but we've pretty much shut the entire irrigation off. And now we've got this vigorous root system holding the embankment together. The plant material helps to filter excess nitrogen, fertilizers, and runoff before it hits to the pond. If turf isn't working in an area, one of the best things you can do is put in an alternative ground cover, which is like perennial peanut or your junipers. Your perennial peanut stays very low, low maintenance and low chemicals. So this one took approximately 2 years before it filled in solid, and you can see it looks great now. It was just all the same. And now they have the different berms and the boulders, and they still have turf, and then they've got beautiful landscape beds that break up that monotony. It all goes back to, if you design it properly, then it can only get better. I don't think that I ever had anyone come to me and say, I regret. Actually, I know I've never had anyone come to me and say, I regret putting in Florida friendly. I've never had anybody say that. Again, it's all, if you design it properly, people are going to be happy with it, and it's going to be aesthetically pleasing, and you're going to save a lot of money. And it's good for the environment. Why not?
All right. So I would like to just show an acknowledgement here. I would like to thank Claire Lewis, who's the FFL statewide director out of Gainesville is her office. She developed this PowerPoint and I presented it. On that, I would like to say thank you guys. I do have a survey that is showing here. Feel free to fill it out if you did watch this video and you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment. Again, my name is Michael Masucci. My contact information is below. That's masuccim@ufl.edu. And my extension or my phone number is 813-744-5519, extension 54142. Again, thank you very much for watching this. And I hope you've learned a little bit more on how Florida-friendly landscaping can help in the community with these common landscape issues. All right. On behalf of University of Florida IFAS Extension Hillsborough County, thank you and have a nice day.